What is up, everyone? This is Nova Vaughn, and let me tell you what's going on. Well, Season 3 of The Mandalorian has finally come to an end, and it's mercifully over.
It's over, Commander.
Now, don't get me wrong, this was an okay season. There was some major episodes that were just god-awful.
Terrible.
And last week's episode was probably the best one. And today's episode was definitely a drop-off, in my opinion. The title of this was The Return. And so it makes you wonder, is someone gonna return in this episode?
Who's coming back?
Sadly, no, there wasn't. So we pick up from last week's episode. They're still in the caves. Bo-Katan and other Mandalorians are fighting off the Imperial troopers. In the meantime, Din Djarin gets away, escapes, and fights off the troopers that were taking him hostage back to Moff Gideon's headquarters. And Din pulls off the escape maneuvers against the troopers. The troopers appear to get the upper hand. However, Grogu in his IG-12 unit comes in there and stops the fiasco, which allows Din to finish off the Imperial troopers. Bo radios Axe, calling for reinforcements, and they escape the caves using their jetpacks. Now, this was a cool scene, I thought, in this episode. You have the TIE bombers getting themselves in position to launch the attack upon the Mandalorian ships in the outer space. Moff Gideon learns about the attacks. He also has a tracking device used so that he can find out where Din Djarin is. The schematics on this were pretty cool, and so he decides to go find Grogu and Din so that he can take care of them once and for all. Din Djarin radios in R5-D4, and R5 goes into the command center where the Imperials are stationed. R5 gives Din his the readings as to where Gideon's command center is. In the meantime, Axe Woves goes to the ship where the rest of the fleet is, tells all the Mandalorians to aboard their gauntlets so that they can return down to the surface of Mandalore while he stays with the ship to detour the TIE bombers. And as you can see, the TIE bombers are on their way up to do battle with their Mandalorian fleet. And it appears that this tactics is working by Axe Wolves. Now, I have to admit that a lot of people were in theory that it was Axe that was one of the spies. Some people even thought it was the armor. Those theories were debunked by this episode. Din comes upon Moff Gideon's command center, and as you can see, it's guarded by more Imperial troopers. So he calls for R5 to help deactivate the shields one at a time. And this tactic is really working. R5 is deactivating each shield one at a time, and there's two guards stationed in each shield, so this makes it easy for Din to fight off the troopers one by one. During this sequence, there's an Imperial droid that spots R5. It sounds the alarm. However, R5 has his little shock device, kind of reminiscent of what R2-D2 was used in the original trilogy as well as the prequels. So that was a kind of nice callback for that. After R5 helps Din with deactivating the shields, R5 is encountered by more little droid bots, and he uses his rocket thrusters to escape the scene. So again, we see this reminiscent of what R2 used to do. Din and Grogu make their way into a cloning facility, and it comes upon Grogu's surprise that these clones are Moff Gideon's, and as we'll see a little bit later, what these clones are going to be used for. However, Din is able to take the cloning facility and destroy it. Now Bo-Katan and the others are in these gardens that the three Mandalorians who stayed on Mandalore set up. It's what they used to survive. It's, they made the gardens, and so they were giving Bo some hope that Mandalore can be restored. Now once again, proven that the armor wasn't the spy. She's with the rest of the Mandalorians, and they're coming in to help Bo-Katan with the Imperial troopers. So reinforcements are on the way to help Bo. Led by Bo in the armor, Bo gets her Darksaber ignited for an all-out battle between the Imperial troopers and the Mandalorians. And I have to admit, I actually like this fight sequence. These two different groups fighting each other using jetpacks. In the meantime, Moff Gideon is incensed that Din had destroyed the cloning facility. He told him that he was going to use that army, and he had cloned them with force abilities, so he could have units with force abilities to retake Mandalore. And so he's absolutely livid that Din actually destroyed the facility, so he wages war against Din. And as you can see, there's a good battle. It appears that Moff is getting an upper hand on Din, and it doesn't help that the Praetorian Guards are coming in to help Moff Gideon try to take out Din once and for all. And people thought that this was where Bo was going to come in to rescue Din. However, it was Grogu that comes in to get the Praetorian Guards to follow him, to lure the Praetorian Guards away from Din, so him and Moff can finish their head-to-head battle. And once again, we see here that Moff Gideon is, with that Beskar armor on him, he's appearing to have the upper hand in this. And then this is where we see Bo-Katan coming in with her Darksaber and to fight off Moff Gideon. And so the battle between them is on. Din goes to help Grogu with the Praetorian Guards, and of course Din doesn't have any force abilities, but he's fighting them off. Now I don't think the Praetorian Guards have force abilities either, because Grogu is able to escape from the Praetorian Guards by just jumping up upon those rafters. And as you can see, Grogu is using the Force to kind of help Din with the battle. Just as one of the Praetorian Guards tries to strike Din, again, Grogu uses his Force abilities to stop it from happening. And from this is when Din was able to finish off the Praetorian Guards. In the meantime, we see the ship piloted by Axe coming in hot, getting ready to take out the Imperial base, and he is still on the ship. the battle between Moff Gideon and Bo is almost ending. And once again, Moff seems to have the upper hand. He destroys the Darksaber. However, Din is coming in to help Bo against Moff Gideon. And once again, we see that the ship that's piloted by Axe Woes is coming in hot, getting ready to destroy the Imperial base, while the other Mandalorians are making their exits, and Axe Woes himself exits the ship so that he can save himself while the ship is destroying the Imperial base. The Imperial base comes in and it is destroying everything, but however, we can really see Grogu is using the Force to shield Bo, Din, and himself from the flames that were coming in from the ship. And this is where we think Moff Gideon dies.
I don't think so.
As far as whether or not he actually dies, that's remains to be seen. We'll find out in season 4. But it wouldn't surprise me if they save Moff Gideon. Now we're back into the mines of Mandalore, and the armor is once again doing the ceremony, because apparently the ceremony that they did at the beginning of the season wasn't complete. You can see that Paz Vizsla's son is committing himself to the creed of the Mandalorians. Din comes in to ask if the armor can also do the same with Grogu. However, she tells Din because he cannot speak, he is not allowed to be part of the creed. So Din offers himself to adopt Grogu as his own. And so we see here that Grogu is officially adopted by Din Djarin, and she calls him Din Grogu. Din Grogu? Really? Was Din Djarin just Djarin before he was Din Djarin?
Come on, you guys.
Do you really think you can do this job better?
And then we see another ceremony. They are at the forge. Bo lights up the cauldrons, and they are going for Mandalore. For Mandalore. For Mandalore! For Mandalore! Then we see Din coming into the bar where the New Republic is, and he's talking to Captain Teva, and you can see in the background Dave Filoni and a couple of other executive members of Lucasfilm. He's discussing some business with Captain Teva as to what to do, as to what he wants to do, and asking him for some assistance. Then Din and Grogu go back to Navarra. Greef Karga here is giving Din the key to his house just outside the city, and in return, Din is giving Greef Karga IG-11, all remade by Babu Frick and his species, and he tells Greef that IG-11 will be the new Marshal on Navarro. And then we see the season end with Din and Grogu at Din's house, with Grogu playing with the frogs again. And notice it closes out, kind of like a Warner Brothers comic.
That's all, folks.
So that was the end of the episode, and a merciful end to Season 3 of The Mandalorian. Now, in a later video, I'm going to give you my takes on each episode, little by little. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a live stream about it or just a regular video, but I'm just going to let you know what I thought of this episode. Now, some of the action sequences in there were great. I like I said at the beginning, it was They picked up where they left off last week with the battle between the Mandalorians and the Imperial troopers. Din getting away from the Imperial troopers was kind of not believable. It had to take Grogu to come in to help Din finish off the troopers so that they could escape and go look for Moff Gideon. The battle between Moff Gideon and Din was okay. Some of the fight sequences were a little lame. Same with Moff Gideon and Bo-Katan. Those fight sequences were kind of lame. I liked the TIE bombers getting ready to launch. I loved that scene. That was actually a cool scene. It was the point of view of the Imperials, the remnants of the Imperials, using TIE bombers to launch their attack upon the Mandalorian fleet just outside of Mandalore. Grogu using his Force abilities a little more. Throughout the season, all he was doing was just jumping around. This episode, he used his Force abilities even greater. He used it to help fight the Praetorian Guards. He used the Force to shield himself, Din, and Bo from the Mandalorian fleet ship that was destroying Imperial base. And apparently, Gideon dies. Like I said earlier, I don't know if he's really dead. Like it's been said before, no one really dies in Disney Star Wars.
No one died, right? No.
I really loved the battles between the Mandalorians led by the Armor and Bo-Katan with her Darksaber against the Imperial troopers in their jetpacks. Instead of this being a complete ground assault, it was an assault in the air, but on the ground, if that makes sense. I really thought that fight sequence was pretty neat. And it was kind of an interesting revelation with the cloning facilities, that they are all just a bunch of Moff Gideons, and which explains why he was using Grogu's blood to clone his Force abilities. We see that Gideon wanted to use his clones to be Force sensitive, and he was assembling his own army of Dark Troopers. So that was kind of interesting.
That's not how the Force works.
As far as the whole episode itself, to me it was definitely a drop-off from last week's episode. Last week's episode, to me, was the best. It wasn't as good as the episode that had the battles between Bo-Katan, Din Djarin, and the pirates. That was a great scene. That was a great episode as well. This episode just didn't really didn't do it. It kind of left it off, the way the whole season was. It was kind of just blah. It was just ugh.
Honestly, it was blah 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 to me.
There was just not good writing. Like I said, the action was good, but the storytelling was just subpar. So, as far as what I would give this show, the rating, it's definitely lower than last week's episode. I'm not going to drop it significantly, but I'm going to probably give this episode maybe a plain old 7. That's pretty much it. So, those are my thoughts on this episode. Let me know. What did you think of this episode? What did you think of the season in general? I mean, like I said, I'm going to put out a video in the days to come on the entire season. What I thought of each episode, real briefly. It just was kind of, like I said, it was just average at best.
Not good enough.
Not good enough.
I'd really appreciate what did you like, what did you not like. Please, let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please, give this video a like, and you can subscribe to my channel as well. You can also follow me on Instagram and join me on my Discord server. This is Nova Vaughn reminding you that it is never too late for a new beginning in your life. So be positive, be cool, and you will be all right.